Welcome to Raaonline. Today we are going to see a very interesting topic, the abdominal compartment syndrome. So, studies on intra-abdominal hypertension has been performed since nearly 150 years. But not until recently, that in 1950s, when pediatric surgeons started performing the abdominal procedures, thus closing the large abdominal defect, closing the hernia, putting back the contents into the intestines and wrapping them up, until these interventions started, the real effect of this intra-abdominal hypertension and abdominal compartment syndrome was not well documented. The silo closure with gradual reduction of abdominal defect was recommended to prevent this type of intra-abdominal hypertension and associated organ failure. Even in the 1950s, they come to know that when you pack the intestines back into the abdomen and you suture them, there is some amount of organ failure which is happening, and they were not able to document exactly is it because of intra-abdominal hypertension or sepsis or the primary disease itself. Okay. Then in 1980s, the vascular surgeons described the abdominal compartment syndrome after abdominal aortic aneurysm procedures, and they said that intra-abdominal pressure can be used as a criteria to understand whether the patient has developed a compartment syndrome in the abdomen. And moreover, in 1990s, when the trauma surgeons adopted the liberal use of damage control strategy, then only we had sufficient number of cases, sufficient number of case reports that abdominal compartment syndrome is on a rising scale. Okay. So whenever there is a trauma and you invite trauma surgeons, there is something called as a damage control strategy, damage control resuscitation. Basically what you do is to control the bleeding and then do a minimal resuscitation surgery and give the patient back to the intensive care unit, right? So once the patient reaches to ER, not complete surgery is done, only a small damage control resuscitation is done, damage control strategy type of surgery is done, and abdomen is packed and given to the intensive care unit. From there onwards, the main aim is to control the hypothermia, control the acidosis, control the coagulopathy. So this is a big triad, right? As you already know, the lethal triad, the coagulopathy, the hypothermia and acidosis. If any of these things presents, there will be a capillary leaks going on, the patient can go in for DIC and the condition can get worsened. So you need to understand why IAP develops. So what is this IAP? Intra-abdominal pressure. It is defined as a steady state pressure present inside the abdomen cavity and is usually around 6 mm Hg, 5 to 7 mm Hg. Okay. So it can be going high to around 10 or 11 in some individuals who are literally obese. Okay. In ICU population, it can go even little more higher. What is intra-abdominal hypertension? Any abdominal pressure because of a pathological state, if it's going to be more than 12 mm Hg, then you need to identify that as an intra-abdominal hypertension. Okay. Otherwise, what the meaning of compartment syndrome? Compartment syndrome is nothing but because of a pressure increase into a fixed cavity of the body. Then because of that pressure, it leads to ischemia, organ damage, muscle damage and organ dysfunction. Okay, this is called as compartment syndrome. Can that occur inside the abdomen? Yes, because abdomen is also a closed cavity, and if the intra-abdominal pressure exceeds, there is a chance that the patient can develop abdominal compartment syndrome. Okay, so at what level they have identified is defined as sustained and persistent IAP more than 20 mm Hg associated with the new organ dysfunction is termed as abdominal compartment syndrome. So now, it's graded as grade 1 is 12 to 15 mm Hg, grade 2 16 to 20 mm Hg, grade 3 21 to 25 and grade 4 is more than 25. Understand, in your unit you might see intra-abdominal hypertensions, but have they really developed a acute compartment syndrome? Abdominal compartment syndrome is a question, right? So this abdominal compartment syndrome also can be classified as primary or secondary or recurrent. Understand, if the issue is primarily inside the abdomen, for example, there is a bleeding liver, there is a trauma, there is intestinal obstruction which is causing increase in the pressure, then it's called as a primary ACS. What is secondary ACS? Because of sepsis, there is ileus. Because of pancreatitis, there is full-blown sepsis, MODS, because of a secondary reason, then it's called as a secondary ACS. Means the primary etiology is not in the abdomen. That's called a secondary ACS. And recurrent ACS is a condition in which ACS redevelops following the previous surgical or medical treatment for previous ACS. Okay. So how to classify this abdominal compartment syndrome? Okay. This syndrome has to be there. Okay. Right. So based on the time frame you can do, it could be an acute leading to like immediately after a trauma, immediately after a surgical procedure over the abdomen. This is also an acute. A chronic means like a pancreatitis where there's a slow development, post sepsis where there's a slow development. All these things are chronic time frame. Then in relation to a peritoneal cavity, it's primary or secondary. And with respect to the etiology, could be because of trauma, because of burns, because of post-operative care, because of pancreatitis, bowel obstruction, ileus, abdominal aortic aneurysm, oncology, any malignancy of that sort, gynecological issues, anything can cause, like hyperovarian syndromes can cause intra-abdominal compartment syndrome. Okay, especially in terms of burns, when there is circumferential burns over the abdomen is not let to expand at all. So it will be even more tight. So the chances of developing a compartment syndrome is going to be more. Sometimes you might have a question, this abdomen is actually patulous, right? The abdomen is easily expandable structure. So how come a compartment syndrome develop inside it? The main reason is below the subcutaneous fascia, below what you see, the skin, the tissues, below the thing, there is a fascia which is literally tense, right? So it is inside those fascia, there is an abdominal compartment. It is there, it develops a compartment syndrome. So what all could be the causes of intra-abdominal hypertension and thereby compartment syndrome? It could be just increased abdominal contents or the volume of the box is reduced, right? Either the box volume is reduced or the content is more, right? So what can cause decrease in abdominal box content, the box volume? Reduction in a long-standing hernia. Okay, reduction in a long-standing hernia. See, there is a long herniation loops, there is an abdomen, there is a long herniation loops. For example, this is abdomen and there are herniating loops of intestines. Okay, now once you pack all these things inside and started suturing it, okay, till that there was a synovial fluid alongside the volume of this cavity was very big. Now you have compressed it and you have sutured it. And now there's a reduction in the long-standing hernia. The box content, the volume of the abdominal cavity itself is decreased, right? And direct closure of large, long-standing abdominal wall deficit. Need not be a hernia, just an open deficit. If so for a longer time and you have now closed it, then also the effective volume is reduced, okay? Then I was mentioning circumferential abdominal wall burns. Circumferential abdominal wall burns. When there is an abdomen and there is a circumferential burn, the abdomen is not let to expand properly, right? And continuous positive pressure ventilation, where if the patient is not adequately prepared for NAV, then patient can go for aerophagia. The air which you give as positive pressure can go inside the abdomen, causing distension of the abdomen. So once the intestinal wall distends, the effective cavity comes down, right? And retroperitoneal edemas, like in case of pancreatitis, and large pelvic or retroperitoneal hematomas can also decrease the effective cavity size of the abdomen. What are the causes of increased abdominal contents? Basically, the most common which you see is an ascites, and in trauma, in ER, your hemoperitoneum, or any visceral edemas like bowel edema, or your hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, which can be literally huge, or abdominal packs for any procedure of that sort, peritonitis, retroperitoneal edemas, large pelvic and retroperitoneal hematomas. This can be this literally can be both an increased abdominal content also, and it can decrease the effective volume of the abdominal cavity also. Intestinal obstruction, both mechanical obstruction and just an ileus like Ogilvie syndrome, and gastric distension, that is esophageal ventilation sometimes, and abdominal aortic aneurysm, severe constipation, large abdominal tumor, morbid obesity, pregnancy itself can all increase the abdominal contents, right? So now,